Donald Trump has confirmed the U.S. would be involved in security guarantees for Ukraine as part of a deal to end the war with Russia. The comments came during a historic meeting involving several European leaders, Ukraine's President Zelensky and Mr. Trump at the White House.
Imagine a single meeting that could decide the course of Europe's future, reshape international diplomacy, and potentially bring an end to one of the most devastating conflicts of our time. On August 18th, 2025, at the White House in Washington, President Donald Trump signaled his determination to arrange direct talks between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin. What unfolded that day was more than a high-level diplomatic gathering. It was a stage where hope, caution, and the weight of war converged. In this video, we'll dive deep into the historic White House meetings, Trump's surprising push for direct negotiations, the cautious optimism of European leaders, and the many unanswered questions about whether peace is truly within reach. The White House summit of August 18, 2025. The White House became the center of global attention on August 18, 2025, as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky joined U.S. President Donald Trump and several European leaders, including British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and French President Emmanuel Macron. The East Room buzzed with anticipation as leaders exchanged measured words while cameras flashed. The atmosphere contrasted sharply with Zelensky's earlier White House visit in February, when tensions ran high. This time, the tone was lighter, even warm. Trump and Zelensky joked about wardrobe choices, drawing laughter from the press corps. But beneath the lighter moments lay the gravity of an ongoing war that has already claimed countless lives and disrupted Europe's stability. Trump's push for direct talks. During the summit, Trump revealed he was in active discussions with Russian President Vladimir Putin. At one point, he even paused the White House meeting to call Putin directly, a move coordinated with European leaders. According to the Kremlin, the call was described as constructive, with Putin signaling openness to direct negotiations with Ukraine. Trump emphasized his desire to arrange a face-to-face meeting between Putin and Zelensky, possibly followed by a trilateral session involving the U.S. "We are working on this," he declared, leaving the world to speculate whether such a breakthrough was realistic or merely aspirational. This push marked a turning point in Trump's approach. Whereas European leaders stressed a ceasefire as the essential first step, Trump spoke more about the long-term peace framework, even hinting at potential U.S. military involvement to guarantee or monitor any deal. Supporters saw this as bold leadership capable of cutting through stalemate, while critics warned that rushing into talks without addressing underlying issues could risk legitimizing Russia's aggression. Either way, the move underscored Trump's willingness to place himself at the center of high-stakes diplomacy, betting on personal relationships and deal-making instincts to shape the outcome of the war. Security guarantees, the heart of the discussions. One of the most striking dynamics during Zelensky's visit was how U.S. domestic politics colored the entire conversation. In theory, supporting Ukraine has often been framed as a matter of national security and democratic values. But in practice, Washington is deeply divided. Since the war began in 2022, Congress has approved over $170 billion in aid to Ukraine. Democrats frame this as both moral and strategic, deterring Russian aggression and defending democracy, while many Republicans question whether U.S. taxpayers should keep funding a distant war amid domestic concerns like inflation and border security. Some moderate Republicans still back Ukraine, viewing it as a test of American leadership, but the GOP remains divided. This split reflects a broader debate. Should the U.S. continue acting as a global policeman or shift toward a more restrained, nationalist foreign policy? The looming 2024 election adds further tension. Lawmakers weigh every vote and statement with voters in mind, balancing pressure from those demanding more focus at home against fears of appearing weak abroad. These political divisions matter greatly for Ukraine. As Zelensky met with U.S. leaders, he was not just addressing policymakers, but also trying to navigate a shifting political environment where support for his country could hinge on the outcome of partisan battles in Washington. In many ways, the visit was as much about convincing Congress as it was about negotiating with the White House. Diverging views. Among leaders, despite the sense of unity displayed in Washington, clear differences emerged. European leaders Macron, Starmer, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, and others underscored the importance of achieving a ceasefire before any serious summit with Russia could take place. Macron voiced skepticism about Putin's intentions, warning that Russia's president still aimed to weaken Ukraine and expand territorial control. Chancellor Merz echoed this sentiment, insisting that weapons must fall silent before negotiations advance. Meanwhile, Trump leaned toward moving ahead with talks even before a ceasefire was in place, a position notably more aligned with the Kremlin's stance. This divergence reflects the delicate balance of trust, strategy, and urgency that characterizes the current diplomatic moment. Symbolic gestures and human stories. Diplomacy is often shaped not only by policy papers and negotiations, but also by powerful gestures that humanize the conflict. Zelensky's visit to Washington in August carried such moments. One of the most striking came when he presented President Trump with a golf club gifted by a wounded Ukrainian soldier, Konstantin Kartavtsev, who had lost his leg in the first months of Russia's full-scale invasion. Golf became part of Kartavtsev's rehabilitation, a way of rebuilding both body and spirit. By passing on this personal item to Zelensky, and from him to Trump, the soldier sent a message that blended resilience, hope, and trust in the power of diplomacy. Trump, visibly moved, recorded a message thanking the soldier, calling the gift a symbol of strength and courage. He then presented Zelensky with symbolic keys to the White House, a gesture signaling friendship and openness at a time when Ukraine's future hinges on international support. This exchange stood in stark contrast to Zelensky's previous visit in February, when Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance had openly criticized him during a contentious press appearance. The difference in tone this time highlighted how dramatically the atmosphere had shifted. What had once been tense and confrontational was now collegial and even lighthearted, as both leaders joked about wardrobe choices and exchanged stories. Beyond these symbolic gestures, the summit also highlighted the human dimension of the war. Zelensky carried with him not only policy proposals, but also the stories of ordinary Ukrainians enduring extraordinary hardship. He shared letters and video messages from citizens on the front lines, reminding those present that the decisions made in Washington were not abstract, but deeply tied to real lives and real struggles. The human side of the conflict was further emphasized when First Lady Melania Trump joined Ukrainian First Lady Olena Zelenska in drawing attention to the plight of children affected by the war. More than 20,000 Ukrainian children have reportedly been abducted by Russian forces, an issue that has become one of the darkest humanitarian tragedies of the conflict. In a deeply personal act, Melania wrote a letter to President Putin, urging him to protect children's innocence and restore families torn apart by war. Olena Zelenska, in turn, sent a note of gratitude, praising Melania's compassion and insisting that her voice matters and her care gives strength to this cause. By placing the issue of children at the forefront, the two First Ladies reminded leaders that peace talks are not just about borders or military strategies, but about restoring dignity, family bonds, and hope for the next generation. Such gestures may not by themselves end the war, but they serve as reminders of what is truly at stake: the lives of individuals, families, and communities whose futures depend on the outcome of high-level diplomacy. The harsh reality on the ground. While leaders in Washington spoke of security guarantees and diplomatic breakthroughs, Ukraine continued to endure the harsh reality of war. On the very same day as the summit, Russia launched its largest aerial assault since July, deploying 270 drones and 10 missiles. The strikes killed 8 people, injured dozens more, and left over 1,000 households without power. Reports from the Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia, Kharkiv, and Kherson regions painted a grim picture: homes destroyed, lives disrupted, and families grieving. A Ukrainian lawmaker, Inna Sovsun, told CNN bluntly, There is no way that we will trust Putin, not after everything that we have been through. Her words underscore a deep skepticism within Ukraine itself, where hope for peace is tempered by the daily trauma of air raids and ongoing offensives. European coordination and the coalition of the willing Zelensky's trip and Trump's shifting stance toward Ukraine resonated well beyond Washington. For U.S. allies like Poland, the Baltic states, and the United Kingdom, the signals from the White House were critical, not only for Ukraine's survival but for the credibility of NATO itself. Meanwhile, France and Germany viewed the moment as an opening to push harder for diplomacy. Macron has long argued for greater European responsibility in security, while German leaders, cautious yet firmer in their support of Kiev, know they would face pressure to fill any gap left by the US. Russia also watched closely. State media painted Zelensky as a beggar, reliant on Western aid, but behind the propaganda lies real concern. If Trump keeps up pressure and negotiations gain ground, Moscow may have to make unwelcome concessions. Beyond Europe, the global south, including India, Brazil, and South Africa, remains ambivalent, prioritizing economic ties with both Russia and the West. For them, US-Ukraine relations signal whether Washington will continue to shape the global order or if the world is moving toward a more multipolar balance. The stakes are enormous. A successful US-led push for talks could reshape Europe's security architecture, while failure risks prolonging a war that disrupts energy, food supplies, and global stability far beyond Ukraine's borders. Global reactions and strategic implications. The world is watching these developments closely, and not just Europe. China in particular has shown keen interest in Trump's diplomatic maneuvers. Chinese media outlets suggested that Trump's outreach to Putin could strain transatlantic unity, something Beijing has historically welcomed. China's leader Xi Jinping has positioned his country as neutral, yet Beijing's deepening trade ties with Moscow make it an important player. Analysts believe China's response to US-led security guarantees in Ukraine could offer clues about its approach to Taiwan. Meanwhile, questions remain about whether Putin truly intends to negotiate. As Macron said candidly, as long as he thinks he can win through war, he will do so. This skepticism lingers in every diplomatic corridor, shaping strategies and expectations alike. The road ahead: hope, doubt, and diplomacy. The White House summit of August 18, 2025, will be remembered as a moment of cautious hope. Trump's push for a meeting between Putin and Zelensky represents a bold step, one that could either pave the way for peace or expose the limits of diplomacy in the face of hardened realities. European leaders continue to emphasize unity. Ukraine demands tangible guarantees, and global powers watch closely for signs of change. For the Ukrainian people, each day brings both the promise of peace and the pain of ongoing attacks. Whether the proposed Putin-Zelensky meeting happens and whether it yields lasting results remains uncertain. But for now, the world has witnessed a glimpse of what diplomacy might achieve if leaders are willing to balance courage with caution. The developments at the White House raise profound questions. Can diplomacy truly end the war in Ukraine? Will Trump's efforts bridge divides or deepen them? And what role will Europe, Russia, and even China ultimately play? What do you think is a direct meeting between Putin and Zelensky the key to ending this war? Or is it simply another stage in a long and uncertain process? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if you found it informative, subscribe for more in-depth breakdowns of global affairs, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Together, let's keep exploring the moments that shape our world.